Welcome in everyone to the show. Hope you're well. And another edition of Knicks Buzz, talking Knicks basketball, the NBA, the start to the year. It's been a up and down ride, and I'm glad to be joined by the one and only Joe Vardon of The Athletic, senior NBA writer, covers the NBA and covered FIBA basketball in the summer. He's in the Cleveland market. Joe, it's a pleasure to have you on. How are you feeling?
I feel great, and it's great to be on. I know we had been talking here for a couple months to get this done, so my apologies that we didn't do it sooner, and I'm happy to be here now.
No doubt. Better late than never, and definitely it's a great time. As I saw the schedule, and I thought, let's get you on right after the Cavs back to back home and home. Before we start on that, what is your general thoughts on these home and homes? And the Knicks have played 5 games in 7 nights to start the year. The Knicks and the Cavs are both 2 and 3. It's been a rough schedule so far.
Yeah, well, I think on your first point about the sort of the home and home, um, I mean, they're doing this in a couple different ways to make the schedule look a little bit more like baseball at times. They're calling these baseball series where you play the same team over a period of days. Usually, since the schedule formatting changed a couple years ago, you would do this in the same city. I mean, for decades, the NBA would do a home and home, more like what we've seen in this week with the Cavs and Knicks. Um, so I mean, I think that's interesting to see more often these teams play each other multiple times within the same week. For this particular series, the Cavaliers, having been bounced by the Knicks in 5 games out of the first round last year, um, they put a little bit more emphasis on these 2 games than I think any team should during the regular season, and got all worked up basically to play on Tuesday in a game that was televised nationally here in the United States, and then they just got trounced. And so I think they learned a hard lesson about putting more stock or emphasis in any one regular season game than you should. There's a reason that there's such a difference between regular season and postseason. Intensity, availability to game plans, who's going to play, who isn't, all those sorts of things add up. And so, um, they they were actually able to win the next night in Madison Square, which certainly had me fooled. But it's a lesson for this team that's trying to learn a few things. Talking about the Cavs.
Yeah, we'll touch on the Cavs a little bit more, obviously, but yeah, with the Knicks starting 2 and 3, it's kind of where a lot of fans felt they would be given the tough schedule. But the way the Knicks have started in terms of their play, it does look like their lead players, Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, have been off offensively. There's been some really poor shooting nights. The New York Knicks shot 16% from three, which is crazy. But I felt the first leg, the Knicks players didn't play a lot of minutes. Obviously, RJ Barrett sat last night with knee soreness, but Tom Thibodeau, was able to bring some of the bench players on in a blowout in Cleveland. Um, did you observe much from last night that made you sort of more concerned with the Knicks' start to the year?
Yeah, I am concerned about the way Julius Randle is moving right now. He is one of the few guys left in the NBA who play 82 games or close. It's really hard to get him out of the lineup. And so he's going to be somebody who might be playing with something, whereas most of these guys don't anymore. But he's not moving the way that he used to. His shot selection is ridiculous, just not what I'm used to at all seeing him. And that's not only just these 2 games this week, but I mean, I watched their game. I think they played the Pelicans. I've seen them a couple of times, like on TV, League Pass, getting ready for various things. And I'm uncomfortable with what's going on there. With Brunson, I mean, I like the way they're using him. I like the way that he's still in the pick and roll. He's getting into the lane. He's shooting that floater. If they're not all falling right now, I mean that's fine. The more problematic issue for me is Julius for sure. He's still rebounding it, and so he's still averaging a double double. But the Knicks are much better when he is a 20 plus guy with the 10 rebounds, and he's just it's been different.
Yeah, it has definitely, and the Knicks fans have seen their ups and downs with Julius. I'm not sure if you're across the whole 4 years Julius has been with the Knicks, but it's been basically All Star, second year, down first year, and then down third year, bounce back last year, again to be another All Star, All NBA. Had the ankle issue in the playoffs, and then surgery. Obviously, a slower summer, but he's under the microscope this year as well as the rest of the team is. But his style of play, he does get frustrated when you do get physical, or you do obviously match up and double him. And I think the Cavs did a nice adjustment last night. Obviously, Dean Wade had his struggles with Julius in Cleveland. JB brought in Georges Niang into the starting lineup for a bit of extra size. Given the fact that the game was so important, was that a surprise that JB made that adjustment?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Dean struggled all last year. He's the one that they basically chose to give minutes to over Kevin Love. It led to Kevin Love's departure for Miami, which ended up getting the Knicks in the second round. Uh, so Dean just hasn't been the same player over the last season and a half now, and he went scoreless, I think, against the Knicks on Tuesday. And so Niang, I mean, he at least is going to give you an opportunity, to knock down some threes, and so I was not surprised there. I guess I was a little surprised that RJ didn't play, just because that's not how Tibbs works. I mean, the Knicks are not a team that takes days off. So RJ's knee must have actually been barking a little bit.
Yeah, it has been ever since the opening night against Boston, where he went up for a transition dunk, and it was closed down by Jason Tatum, I feel, and he kind of mini hyperextended the knee, I feel, and it's been sore ever since. And then obviously I think they took the side of precaution last night. There's talk that he should be ready for tomorrow night against Milwaukee in the first NBA Cup game for the New York Knicks. We'll touch on the NBA Cup and your thoughts on that too. But yeah, RJ Barrett's fast start to the year, he's been an X factor for a lot of Knicks Nation, and even critics and just observers of the New York Knicks, feeling like for the Knicks to get that next level, RJ Barrett, what's he going to look like in his fifth year? And he's been the best New York Knick over the 4 games. Now, you are obviously covering your FIBA,
Hmm.
and Jalen Brunson's slower start. Is there anything you can observe or any correlation between his performance with Team Canada and maybe coming in with extra rhythm, because his 3-point shooting is better than it has been? That's probably been the biggest thing that's kind of popped so far.
Yeah. So there is this old adage that when you play for your national team in the summer, like, you're supposed to come back and be really strong, like have a really strong season, especially if it's the first time that you've done it, or the first time in a while. And in RJ's case, that was true. Uh, Certainly, as far as like a tournament like this goes. And he was awesome for Canada, and Canada had a historic run. They beat the United States in the bronze medal game, so that's the highest finish that Canada has ever had at a World Cup, and RJ had a lot to do with that. Um, Getting the opportunity in RJ's case to play and work out with a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, a Dylan Brooks. It's a team that, unlike the U.S., they weren't entirely filled with NBA stars, but they still had 7 or 8 of them. Dort was on that team, really good, and Olynyk's another one. And so you just being around those players and working out with them every day, is one reason that you benefit from it. I think you benefit from the physicality a little bit, and having to work harder to get yourself open to shoot and get to the rim. Then you come back over here and you play an NBA game that has more space. The referees are going to protect you more with the ball in your hands, and so I think it's a little bit easier. And when you look across the league, I think you can name some guys who are not off to good starts who competed in the FIBA tournament, but RJ is playing as well or better than anybody. that was in that tournament, and I do think that the experience is a reason why.
Yeah, and I think usage. He was starting with Canada, getting kind of similar usage as he was with the Knicks, kind of the third option with
Mm-hmm.
Shea Gilgeous. Dylan Brooks had a great tournament.
Yep.
But on the flip side, Brandon Ingram, a guy like him, wasn't having a great FIBA, but seems to get off to be a great start with New Orleans. So that's reverse right now.
Well, he also had a really tough tournament at FIBA, and I mean, this is when you and I were actually messaging offline. But he had gotten to the point where um, he wasn't getting a chance to shoot, and he expressed to me that he was frustrated just about how it was going. And when you get these teams together, whether it's the U.S. or Canada or Australia, even um, France at one time, these teams that have a ton of pros on them, and these guys are all used to being the best player on their team or their second best. And in Brandon's case, he was a former All-Star, and so when they all get together on these All-Star teams for FIBA, somebody has to take a step back, and that was definitely Brandon. And he just wasn't used to either that or the way that they were asking him to play, and so he eventually went to the bench. And then by the end of the tournament, he was out sick, didn't play the last game or two. Um, and unfortunately, I think for him and for the Pelicans, like that has kind of carried over, and he's hasn't gotten off to a great start, and now he's hurt.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a challenge and adjustment. As someone who's followed the FIBA game for a long time, it's not as easy as people feel in terms of the adjustment. The spacing is obviously much more crowded. But with talking RJ Barrett and the New York Knicks, they've looked good when he's getting more reps. Moving forward now with your concerns with Randle's shot selection, with Jalen Brunson working his way into a groove. Uh, if you're looking at the Knicks and sort of feeling like how can Tibbs get the best out of this offense, would you be more curious to see RJ Barrett with more usage? There's been an emphasis to pass the ball more, but the New York Knicks turnovers has gone up. And then if they're isolating, they're kind of playing into the defense hands as well. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how the Knicks can maximize, their offense moving forward.
Well, I don't like the shot selection from Randall right now, as we talked about earlier. And so, not that I mean, I'm not like X's and O's aren't necessarily my strong suit, but where Julius is catching the ball and what the situation is on the shot clock. I would like to see them run more things where he's catching it closer to the rim, get him established with his back to the basket, and then start getting into spots where he's catching the ball in rhythm on the perimeter to shoot a three. I mean, these one dribble pull up threes from 28 feet when you're not in a rhythm. I mean, that's a bad shot anyway. Um, but when you're struggling the way that Julius is, it just looks bad. He's been getting caught in some double teams, and he's trying to step through those double teams, and he's not getting there. And so what ends up happening is he's throwing up these lazy turnarounds that really don't have much of a chance either. So when we talk about offense and the Knicks and how to get him going, I mean, maybe he's got to pass out of that double team, and have the faith that the ball's going to come back to him. You got to trust your guys a little bit. I mean, it's definitely something that stands out. He's not moving overall the way we're all used to.
Yeah, yeah, you made some great points, Joe, about the Knicks are just good bad shot makers over the last few years, and if those tough shots aren't falling, things start to get really tricky. There's been a lot of some critique of Jalen Brunson looking to score first and
Mm-hmm.
not get others involved, not get into the offense fast enough. You obviously saw Jalen Brunson closely in FIBA. Uh, how do you feel like he can deal with extra size? He's on the scouting report now. He had a breakout year with the Knicks and took his game to another level. There is a level of concern that teams are going to be more focused on stopping him.
So I would suggest that Jalen Brunson has been on scouting reports for a while. I think that he had a brilliant last year in Dallas, and that's what led to the big bag that he got from the Knicks. and so that would be a reason he was on Team USA to begin with. So I feel like he is playing similarly to the way that he played on Team USA. Like he is a score first point guard. He is. He's somebody that's good with that. He likes the ball with his hands. I mean, he's somebody who can average over 20 points. Can take a lot of shots, and he's also somebody who he's only 6'4", I think. No, he's certainly no taller than that. Might even be shorter.
6 feet.
He's 6 feet. Wow, I
Yeah.
but maybe I'm thinking of Josh. Josh is like 6'5".
Yeah, that's it.
But
Yep.
Brunson he's so thick that he can play bigger. He's one of those guys that can dribble into the lane, throw a shot over a bigger guy, and then grab the rebound if he needs to. So I'm okay with the way that he's playing, and I think that his game is similar to what I saw in FIBA. The way he played there didn't necessarily translate into success, but he has been an excellent NBA player over the last few years.
Yeah, another guy who was just an excellent bad shot maker, a tough shot maker in terms of his step back, and it was really efficient. He's one of the most efficient guards. So you always see him in two minds. Should I go try to get the bucket? I can pass it out, but the Knicks, again, they're not exactly laced with talented offensive players and shooters.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like R.J. Barrett again comes back to him as that big X factor, and especially with this crowded East, which leads us to some changes in the East right now. It's a little more top heavy. Cleveland have their huge supporters in terms of believers in them getting a top 3 seed, top 4 seed. There's this rivalry going on now. Obviously, the playoffs were hotly contested. Being the Knicks got back to the playoffs, the Cavs got there with their star Donovan Mitchell. Moving forward, how do you see the futures of both teams in this crowded East? The ceilings of their year, this year specifically?
Well, I do think in the East that Boston is obviously off to a tremendous start, and they are as deep as they usually are, but the talent is different. Drew Holiday, is more he's got more to his game than Marcus Smart. But then having him in a way takes the ball out of Tatum and Brown's hands in terms of initiating offense late in games. Porzingis, as long as he stays healthy, he gives them some size and range that they are not used to having out of that spot. And they've just been mauling teams right now. So you think about them, and then the other team that we always talk about is the Milwaukee Bucks, and they're struggling right now. There's no question about it. They're nowhere near the defensive team that they had been under Budenholzer. They're trying a different scheme, and then which affects where Brook Lopez plays, and that has been hurting him. But then obviously, you switch out Drew Holiday, who's an all-league defender, for Damian Lillard, who's just not a very good defensive player. And you're going to have some challenges there. So they need to find their rhythm, I think, before we can crown them as a true East favorite. When you get into the sort of who's next, there is a big group, and the Knicks certainly deserve to be in that conversation, as do the Cavs, as do the Heat. I think that we need to see what kinds of changes take place on these rosters as the seasons move along. Who is active at the deadline? Not that deadline trades can make or break a season. They typically don't. But in these cases where injuries are at an all-time high in terms of year in, year out, so that can affect the race. And then being as close as these teams are, who's the team that changes its look, for the better? We haven't even talked about Philadelphia. With the Harden trade, right now they have a lesser roster than we're used to. So there's a lot of room to run there. I think spots 2 through 10. the Knicks played harder than most of the teams last year, and that's kind of how they got to where they are. I think there's a ceiling there
Health,
with
yeah.
overall talent. The Cavs have a tremendous amount of talent, I think, but lacking toughness right now. And then the Heat. I mean, they continue to lose players. They continue to be competitive because of who the coach is, who the stars are, and then the guys they plug in. They're as good as anybody in the NBA at developing talent, and it's the same again. So, wouldn't count them out.
Yeah, I certainly feel like, Joe, we're going to see the parity like we do with the West, like we're used to, in terms of, like you said, 3 till 10. Um, and obviously, yeah, the deadline moves. I'm looking at the Raptors and the Bulls as teams that are very likely to make some moves this year. But the Raptors have started quite well. But these heavyweights are susceptible to a bad loss early. The Milwaukee Bucks have had two of them. Such is the parity that the Knicks have beaten Atlanta in Atlanta, and then Atlanta have gone and beaten Milwaukee over there. So I was trying to tell Knicks fans that, I won't be surprised if the Knicks go into Milwaukee in the first NBA Cup game and win that one. We know Tom Thibodeau does, well, the Knicks, to their credit, do bounce back generally after losses, which is why they've been quite consistent over the last year. For the Cavs, specifically, obviously Donovan Mitchell has had two excellent games. Do you feel like he's at his peak? Right, you've seen him for a minute now. How have you seen his game with and without Darius Garland in the lineups?
He, Donovan and I go back to the 2019 USA team. So that's how long I had been around him. And then since he came to Cleveland, which is where I live, I get a chance to see him a little bit more. And he's been a dominant regular season player. He was not good against the Knicks in the playoffs. All of your viewers know that. He's good with or without Darius. The Cavs miss Darius right now for sure. It's a little bit of and I think it remains this way, a feeling out process between those two as far as who takes over in the fourth quarter. When Darius isn't out there, obviously there's no question who that's going to be. But I think they struggled with that in the playoffs last year, and certainly at times throughout the regular season. Darius is a great player and is somebody who's good with the ball in his hands too. So they need to figure that out, I think. And it's certainly a topic of conversation when you think about the Cavs. Is Donovan's happiness here, his intentions, where he wants to go, if he doesn't want to stay in Cleveland long term, and it's a story obviously that continues to link him to the Knicks.
Yep. Do you feel like it's predicated on the Cavs' success? And specifically this year. Next year, I think, is the year at the end of next year where his option comes in. Donovan's been an extremely loyal guy and professional, especially in his situations in Utah. My expectation is that he's going to give the Cavs every opportunity to win. Is that your feeling?
Oh yeah, I mean certainly he's going to play. Yeah, he's going to play, and leave it all out there when it's time to do that. I don't know that it comes down to winning. I think it comes down to what the opportunities are. He's made no secret that he wants at some point to play for his hometown team. He did not ask to be traded to Cleveland. And so he's there, and he's certainly trying to make the most of it. I think from a Knicks perspective, when you look at, of course, the Knicks want another star. Do they want a player who's about the same size as Jalen Brunson and who does some of the similar things? Even if Donovan's a better player, fine, or if he's a better offensive player, fine. But they're similar players. If you're the Knicks, do you want both of them and what they cost in your backcourt, instead of the sort of, the yin and yang of a Brunson and a Barrett, who we've talked about all day? So I'm not sure. So if the Knicks have sort of made their decisions in the backcourt and aren't chasing another smaller guard, then you're Donovan and you recognize that you have a good situation in Cleveland, and the Cavs can pay him more money than anybody. And, shorter term deals are, of course, available, and to see what happens a couple years down the road in New York, if you want to go that route. And then also, stars have no problem these days getting a new contract and then asking for a trade shortly after that. So all the options are open. I just think that the most important thing for Donovan when it comes to the decision he makes is what the opportunity is.
Yeah, yeah, I actually feel the same in terms of the options are definitely going to be open, and I feel like it's going to continue that story as we move along this season. It's going to be something to watch. With the Sixers, we got to touch on them after the big trade. It does look like they're set up with these draft picks, and the goal was to then add another star themselves with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. You feel like they've obviously lost some star power. They've regressed on paper. But this year is another big year for them. There was even rumors today that reports that they would be interested in a Donovan Mitchell themselves. So the sweepstakes is going to be bigger. But for the Sixers, do you feel like right now they're in the same group as the Knicks and the Cavs?
I do. I mean, I certainly couldn't put them on a level with Boston or even Milwaukee, just because we think the Bucks will be there. But yeah, I mean, they got worse. I mean, they lost somebody that I think led the league or was close in assists per game last year. James has historically been pretty bad in the playoffs, and certainly last year was more of that. But you can't argue that they're better than they were. They have a different coach, Nick Nurse, so we'll see. But yeah, like you would think, and Daryl Morey's history, they're concerned about how Joel feels, so you would expect them to make that next move. And I really think for Donovan to be available this year, the season would have to really go off the rails. I mean, like we're talking like Cavs lose to the Knicks again on Wednesday instead of winning that one at Madison Square Garden, and then going on this West Coast trip and losing all the games, and something like that. And I know that's not going to be the case. The Cavs will be in it, so I don't see that happening. So then, right, you look at the Bulls; they're going to break up. You think. So there's all kinds of players there available, whether it's Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan. Both would be good next to Embiid. Yeah, I mean OG, and Obi there in Toronto, another option. So there will be options for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of links there. I feel Tobias Harris is expiring as well as DeMar DeRozan. I feel like so that's why those players are could be available for a rental to see where we're at the deadline. I think it's going to be extremely active. But I also agree with you with this year playing out. Donovan Mitchell, I feel like while the talk may continue, the summer is when maybe more decisions are going to be made based on how the season went along. But yeah, the wider parity in the NBA. Just your initial thoughts on this NBA in-season tournament. You've been covering the NBA for a while now.
10 years.
10. Congratulations.
This is it. This is 10.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, there has been innovative. You could say that in the last in the Adam Silver regime. A lot of people feel like this is a ratings thing with the television rights coming up. We've had some changes to the All-Star game, but as a fan of other sports and cup kind of formats, I'm open to this NBA Cup situation. There's no extra games, and I think everyone's going to get excited when we get over to Vegas. So what is your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. I think Friday people are going to say, "What is this?" This feels like another regular season game. But then when we sort of get into the last stages of the pool play, and the TVs are hitting us over the head with, well, here's everybody's record and here's what needs to happen to get into the knockout rounds. I think that you'll see the level of play increase a little. I think the buzz will rise, and then when we get into the knockout stage, I think players are going to care, and I think it's going to get really interesting. And when we get to Vegas, I'll be there. I think it's gonna be awesome. And I would disagree that this in season tournament is tied to the need for a new TV contract. I think that this is something that's going to be here to stay. It's something that Adams wanted to do for a long time. He's very interested in European soccer. That's what we call it here. In the way that they do all these different in season type of events. Even the Euro, like the way the European basketball works in between like these leagues in the various countries, and then EuroLeague itself. I think a lot of American fans don't realize how that works. It's going to be similar. So yeah, I really expect this to go well. The play-in tournament has been a tremendous success, and obviously we had 2 teams out of that get to the Final Four of the playoffs last year. So I think both of these things are here to stay.
Yeah, and you could extend the conversation to expansion teams, and I think this is the first sort of a layer of more of this kind of innovation, especially with trying to introduce the world, with FIBA, and there's been the conversations that's been taking place over the summer. Maybe an international teams can compete in this in this NBA Cup and all of that. I'm all for it. But yeah, also. There's been some hype around Victor Wembanyama. I want to get your thoughts on you've seen him closely, and you've seen LeBron obviously come into the league, completely different players. But were you a guy that felt like Wembanyama was going to come in from day one and do what he's doing? It kind of looks like it's just based on talent, and he's looking effortless out there.
Yeah, I think that there's lots of. First of all, I will be at his game at Madison Square Garden for the Athletics. So I'm looking forward to that. I attended his debut in San Antonio on the first Wednesday of the year, and I was also there covering his first summer league game, which was a real disappointment. But what we've seen since then is a player who was clearly tired and out of shape in July in Las Vegas, who has since rested and rejuvenated and gotten back to work, and is an immensely unique and talented player who is not, by any stretch, the focal point of what the Spurs do offensively right now. Most of what he gets is off of the rebound or on his own. And usually, what we're seeing really is Popovich having to introduce him into the offense later in games. We saw that opening night. He comes off the bench with 5 fouls, and all of a sudden the Spurs are throwing it to him on the lob and rolls and pick and pops, and he's knocking down all these shots. That wasn't how he played. And even if he's not getting the ball as much as he should, then he impacts the game because he can block a jump shooter from 15 or 20 feet. He can block you at the 3-point line, which we don't really have anybody that can do all those things. You're either too slow to get out there. If you're a great shot blocker, like even somebody like Jaren Jackson, he's not somebody who is going to change a jump shot from the elbow, but we've seen Victor do that. And so a tremendous talent. You hope he gets bigger and stronger. Not sure how much bigger he can get with that frame, but he's, I think, I don't want to say like, oh, he's like LeBron. He's living up to the hype, because the hype and the expectations on LeBron, I still think, far exceed what we've said about Victor and the expectations on Zion, which he has not met. But I like what I've seen from Victor. He has poise. He's really smart for a 19-year-old kid. Speaks better English than I do. I'll tell you that. And he gets it. Like I think he understands the basics of how to be a pro, and he can play. So really looking forward to seeing this, both short term and long term.
Yeah, definitely. It's had more excitement. Definitely, every time we get a prospect like this, every generation, and you could call him a generational kind of talent, a guy that can dominate games based on his physicality, like Shaquille O'Neal coming in. But yeah, I want to conclude with just getting your thoughts on Paris 24. I don't know if you have plans to cover FIBA again? Is that in the works?
Hey man, that's my day job here at the Athletic Grids. One of them is I'm our FIBA guy. So yes, reservations have long been made. I'm actually going to go. I'm going to go with the Cavs and the Nets to Paris in January to also to get ready for. So I'm going to get a lay of the land. I think there's a lot of interesting stories when we think about the 2024 Olympics. This is something that Nick Batum has said to me. This is something that some of the USA basketball officials have said. We are looking at arguably the greatest basketball tournament ever in terms of star power, in terms of interest, and then in terms of like who's going to win. I mean, you could have a situation with Serbia with Nikola Jokic playing. They're as good as anyone. Then the United States is supposedly sending Steph Curry and Joel Embiid and LeBron and KD. That's awesome. But you can only play 5 at a time. And I'll tell you this, I was there in 21 in Tokyo. Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, and Bam and Drew Holiday are on the floor. Those are all stars. And France was within a possession, 2 minutes to go, could have won. And so, star power does not mean what it used to because everybody can play. So Australia is super deep. Germany's the defending FIBA champion. They'll be as strong or stronger. You look for France to bounce back after a terrible World Cup. And then, Luka makes Slovenia interesting. Canada's really, really good, and they're going to be even better with Jamal Murray, probably Andrew Wiggins. So, get all the basketball you can in now, of course. Enjoy the regular season, enjoy the playoffs and finals, but then don't tune out for the summer because coming right back in late July is going to be a huge, huge deal with Paris 24.
Definitely, yeah. That's one of the reasons I brought that question up because I feel the same way. I've been tweeting out that I feel like in my time it's going to be one of the more best contested basketball tournaments, given health permitting. Hopefully, you mentioned Nikola Jokic, LeBron James. We've got to see how this NBA season plays out first. But yeah, really looking forward to it, and it's just showing how deep the the game is growing now around the world with Victor Wembanyama, obviously Joel Embiid committing to Team USA. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun. But I do hope you get some rest because you're on a 12-month schedule right now.
It's a lot. I mean, trying to find the rest. Like for instance, when NBA training camp started, all across the United States, I was on vacation. I was on a little vacation. So trying to pick my spots here and there to get some rest and keep the energy. But Paris is a draw. It's the reason why so many stars are going to be there. Everybody wants to be a part of this, and I think we'll all rest come August of 24.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on, Joe. I really appreciate your thoughts on the Knicks, the Cavs, NBA, and everything. What have you got coming up, and where can people read you?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm on the social media app formerly known as Twitter, just at Joe Vardon, as you can see there. And then theathletic.com has all of my stuff. The Warriors are coming to Cleveland on Sunday, and so I'll get a chance to check in with my good acquaintance, USA coach Steve Kerr, and 2024 USA point guard Steph Curry, who was also born in the same hospital that LeBron and I were born in Akron. So we all have that. And then I'm going to go out to New York for the James Harden debut with the Clippers Monday at Madison Square. And then as we've mentioned, Victor will be in the Big Apple on Wednesday night. So really good next string of days for me.
Yeah, and then on to Vegas soon.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think they've done it well before getting it out before while the football season is going on.
Yes.
As well. Yep. Definitely. Yeah. Well, hopefully we get a chance to talk soon.
Please.
And enjoy. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, everyone. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Joe. Joe Vardon of The Athletic, senior NBA writer. Great conversation to have and talk to Joe about the Knicks start to the season. Joe made some really interesting points, from an observer covering these games and in the Cleveland market. It feels like the Knicks got to get better shots, right? Concerns over shot selections. We know Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson do like to hold on to the ball. RJ Barrett, his growth this year is only a great thing for the New York Knicks offense and the team moving forward. Before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about a couple of pieces of news that have come through. There's been quite a bit of a reaction, ladies and gentlemen, over some footage from last night's game with Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, physically showing their emotion and frustration. There was some ugly defense being played. These are two of the veterans and the leaders of the team. You would love this conversation to take place more in the locker room, and no doubt it does. But I feel like there's not too much concern on my part for this. These guys are passionate. They really, really want to win. Whether it's initiated by Brunson, talking to Randle about getting in your spot, helping out, missing defensive assignments. This thing happens across the whole league. If we continue to see it, that's when my level of concern is definitely going to go up regarding that. But there's two leaders voicing their frustration, so it's not great. But if it continues, then I'm going to be more concerned with that. As the chat's buzzing, appreciate everyone's comments. Hulu says JB was fed up with Julius yesterday. Now we're 2-3. I kind of feel like these guys definitely wanted to get off to a better start. And the frustration there of losing that game to Cleveland when they had a great chance to win, the tiebreaker is definitely there. And he was definitely frustrated. But Julius also doesn't really, it appears that he doesn't like to be, spoken to and critiqued as well by any player. It doesn't matter if it's Jalen Brunson. But again, that goes back to every player's natural ego, and them wanting to, have those conversations maybe, behind closed doors. But, you get that white line fever where you're frustrated on the court. It's going to happen, right? But if it continues to happen, then it's going to be more of a concern. The other thing was we had some news from a long-time veteran, a Utah Jazz player, one of Donovan Mitchell's closest friends in the NBA, Joe Ingles, fellow Australian. I know Joe quite well. He's from the same area, city, and Joe gave some thoughts, when asked for this Utah Jazz radio station. Joe Ingles said, regarding Donovan Mitchell, this is like non-bias, no outside info. I think he'll play for New York one day. Whether that's sooner or later, I think it would be great for New York, and I think it would be great for him. Whether or not that actually happens, we'll wait and see. Now, Joe's the kind of guy that never minces words. Like he's known around the league as a jokester, a larrikin, a guy who loves to give his thoughts. And Joe is really close to Donovan Mitchell. Like, again, those guys were were probably the closest teammates together in Utah. So in just putting my tinfoil hat on, no doubt him and Donovan Mitchell had many conversations, while they were in Utah about maybe Donovan wanting to play or dreaming about playing in New York one day. This just basically, adds more to the conversation. I don't think anything's going to happen anytime soon. But again, at some point in Donovan Mitchell's career, we do expect him to explore the avenue. And I mentioned the word avenue. Now, what that means is if the Knicks roster's stacked and there's no room, that they could go in a different direction. But if there's a spot available and the Knicks are open to it, I expect those conversations to be had, and that avenue to be explored. It's up and down. There's a lot of fans that feel like Donovan Mitchell wouldn't fit great next to Jalen Brunson, which is another reason why we've got to see how it plays out in Cleveland. Playing next to Darius Garland, a kind of a score-first guard also, and how that works. But from a perspective of maybe not overthinking it, Donovan Mitchell is a talent, and it's a talent upgrade. So I'm always open to acquiring any talent that you can get, but provided on how you acquire that talent. If we're signing him as a free agent, excellent. You get to keep everyone out of a deal. You get to keep draft picks, and then you see how it works. Sign and trades, things like that. But for right now, the Knicks got to get it together. They've got to play better basketball. Tom Thibodeau, and mentioning, talking to Joe Vardon just now about, how the Knicks can get better shots. It's how anyone that's watching the Knicks feels, right? You don't have to be a Knicks fan to understand that our offense does rely heavily on two guys, a little too much. There's been a lot made about Quentin Grimes' shot attempts. 7 attempts most nights, sometimes less. One glaring stat that I didn't mention, or I think I may have mentioned last night's post game, was that Quentin Grimes had 4 less shot attempts than Mitchell Robinson on a game where RJ Barrett wasn't playing. Now, there's no way when RJ Barrett plays he has only 4 more shot attempts than Mitchell Robinson. So yeah, Jalen Brunson, Randle, got to get everyone more, open, more opportunities. But Quentin Grimes specifically, right? It's a huge year for him and RJ. Those guys need to get more shots up, and it's going to free up Randle and Brunson more to play a little off ball. When these guys are on ball so much, it plays into the hands of the defense. George's Niang with his little bit of extra size, the defenders can come over and help. So they've got to do a better job at moving the ball quicker when the double comes, but also Quentin Grimes, getting more shots up, getting ready. Hulu says no one should be above constructive criticism. 100% agree. I appreciate JB holding Julius accountable. Remember, Emmanuel Quickly as well, had a conversation with Julius on the court as well. And I would love it, to be the two-way street. There should be instances where Julius can have a conversation with anyone. That's why no one's above criticism, like you said. Spider holds all the cards this summer to force a trade here. Yeah, I feel like the way Cleveland acquired him was very sudden. No doubt they put a great package together. Kudos to Cleveland for getting that trade. They had Sexton, who was a spare part for their plans. They had Agbaji, they had Larry Markkinen. They pulled off the trade, but they did come in late. Donovan Mitchell did expect to be a New York Knick at that point. So with that said, I think Joe's thoughts were obviously echoing that Donovan's still going to explore his options. I feel it's not just about Cleveland being good. It's more than that. He's been in Utah his whole career. He's been in Cleveland. He never asked to be traded to Cleveland as well. So not just the Knicks, but he's well within his right to consider everyone. And I think Philly, their plans, fam, it's going to be super interesting to see what happens with Philly now able to have cap space and some draft picks to throw out there as well. I mentioned DeMar DeRozan, expiring contract. You got Tobias Harris is expiring as well. They might want to flip that this year to see if they can get something for him before it expires. We'll wait and see. Maybe the Knicks, worst case scenario, if Leon Rose is really desperate at the trade deadline, he could use Evan Fournier's expiring contract to swap for Tobias Harris's expiring contract. Maybe sweeten the deal a little bit and get another backup power forward, another power forward that can help the Knicks scoring. Not saying I'll be for that move. I'm looking at all possibilities in terms of if this season starts to slide. I think the front office is definitely going to start to get more creative with what they can do. DeMar DeRozan is a guy who can also get buckets. But if you're committing to those guys, it's a short-term commitment. It's 1 year and the deal's expiring. So look out for this Evan Fournier deal. That's what's going to help the Knicks make maybe a short-term move or a long-term move as well. I'm kind of surprised he's not getting any minutes. 5 games in 7 nights. I'm kind of surprised. in terms of why, he hadn't got any minutes yet. But obviously Deuce McBride got a little bit of minutes. Yeah, the talk is with Philly, Levine going after Siakam too. That's interesting. Yeah, you're on the money, fam. On fire. But look at Minnesota too. How do they start in the West? Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert is another one. But I think, Leon Rose is aiming higher. He was obviously has a relationship with Joel Embiid. But with that said, I feel like Philly have to have a really bad year for anything to happen with Embiid this year. Kind of like what Joe said as well. But, this year we got to make the most of what we have right now. Anything outside of the Knicks is outside of our control for now. We got to start playing more consistent, start stringing off some of these wins, right? And it starts with Friday night Knicks first NBA Cup game in Milwaukee. Milwaukee have laid an egg to start the year a couple of times with Miami, I think one of the worst teams in the East right now. I think they are the worst team. Yeah, Miami Heat at 1-4 are the worst team in the East right now. So we have a great chance to sink them. Washington, the Hornets. This could be the Knicks' ticket to Vegas, baby. Beating the Milwaukee Bucks tomorrow night. We'll be live post-game covering it. Obviously, they're going to have to start to bounce back as well. Milwaukee are in the 6th seed at 2-2. Damian Lillard's been a little up and down as well. We have the Brooklyn Nets, the Pacers, the Hawks, and the Sixers and the Celtics above them. So, tomorrow night's game has a lot at stake. Tom Thibodeau, he's proven he can get this team to bounce back after they've had some bad performances. Hopefully RJ Barrett is going to be healthy. I really feel like it's a 50-50 right now. I think he's going to be questionable, and I think he's going to be a game-time decision. Once again, fam. But it shows now how much we need RJ Barrett this year as that third option, and the way he's driving, shooting, swishing, and dishing, it's going to take more attention from the defense. And that's going to free up Randle and Brunson's game as well. But Mitch is holding his role down. We need Quentin Grimes to also step up, as well as Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. This is a big game. We need to be locked in defensively. I'm going to be interesting to see how Julius defends Giannis, or tries to defend Giannis. What's Tibbs' backup plan? Who else is he going to throw out there as well? The other thing a point I want to make too, guys, lost in all of this, is the Knicks are small, right? A lot of concerns over Josh Hart being the premier backup four, and it's not looking good to start the year as well. We obviously have the option to add, a waiver wire, add a talent as a free agent and waive somebody. We can't really make any trades till December 10, I believe, but with that said, I'm concerned why the Knicks, made a couple of their later roster moves. Why did we waive Nathan Knight, and why did we waive Isaiah Roby just to keep Daquan Jeffries, who's another 6'5" guard, who's really not going to see any significant minutes behind all the guards we have? Is it because they maybe foresee a quickly trade at some point? Right, it doesn't make any sense if that's not the case. Also, we're not playing Fournier either. So, how's Daquan Jeffries going to get any minutes? Then we give Jacob Toppin a two-way roster spot as well. We waive Jalen Martin. We give Dwayne Washington another two-way roster spot, another undersized guard that's not going to see any minutes. Is it because of relationships that the New York Knicks are giving these deals out? To me, on the surface, it makes no sense. These fits, right? We waive our only two backup power forwards with any kind of size just to keep undersized guards that aren't going to get any minutes as well. So I'm speculating that it's more about relationships. Those guys feel more comfortable. Ryan Arcidiacono is another one, although we know he's a backup point guard as the third, fourth string. That makes a little more sense, keeping him. even though it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It makes a little more sense, but keeping Daquan Jeffries, keeping Dwayne Washington, it doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe we wanted to just make sure we give them the bag and then we waive them later. Maybe their salary is unguaranteed. I understand that. But yeah, early concerns for me over the backup power forward spot with Josh Hart, and a lack of size. Now, Jermichael Green, Taj Gibson, there's some names out there that could help. If the Knicks continue to slide, if we are, let's say, 4, 5, 6 games below 500, maybe then we will see the New York Knicks make an addition as a backup power forward with extra size. We'll see. I like RJ Barrett getting some minutes there, playing more with the bench. But if this knee concern lingers throughout the season, that's going to be something to watch as well. A little bit of a negative with the FIBA action, obviously with extra tread on his tires, but I don't think that has much to do with it. I think it was more the incident with Boston and the dunk, landing awkwardly on that knee, Jason Tatum closing him down. Man, it's just unfortunate. Yeah, Hulu says Milwaukee's coming off an embarrassing loss. Hopefully they don't explode. They'll be ready, for the national game. Yeah, we need to bring our best basketball of the year for that one, but I think we have a chance, definitely. I won't be surprised if Julius bursts out, has a 25-point game, 10 rebounds. But you also agree, we're extremely small. We've discussed this all off-season, inexcusable, coming into the season undersized. Yeah. Given the fact that I know that these guys aren't real difference makers, but in terms of roster construction, with Knight, with Roby, it just didn't make any sense, right? Why not just keep one of them, Keep one of them on the two-way, Nathan Knight. I mean, obviously we're not privy to everything, and I'm willing to be, to be wrong on this if there was some other concerns. Maybe Nathan Knight wanted out. Maybe he wanted to explore another opportunity. Maybe they didn't like what they saw. Could be a lot of things. But to me, you needed to bring in a backup power forward, ladies and gentlemen. So with that said, let's wrap this thing up. Early show. Great opportunity to talk to Joe about FIBA. Doing great work with The Athletic, covering the NBA nationally as a senior writer. And I've been talking to Joe since way back, since FIBA began. And he's going to be covering Paris. He's close to the Cleveland market. He'll be in the Garden versus San Antonio to see Victor Wembanyama. I think he also said he's going to be in the Garden for James Harden's debut. It was written in the stars, right? That's another blockbuster game the Knicks find themselves in with the LA Clippers. Could you imagine the panic that could set in if the New York Knicks can defeat the Clippers on James Harden's first debut and make that whole thing look shaky to start? That's going to be interesting. Hopefully we can quash this slump we're in offensively, look cohesive, bounce back. RJ Barrett comes back, looks great. Then Knicks Nation, the streets are buzzing. Quentin Grimes getting into a groove. There's a whole lot of upside with this team still, but there's also that level of concern that we may continue to see the offense look stagnant as well. Tom Thibodeau, Jalen Brunson, the heads of the snake. Make sure they're watching film and and getting this thing right. We haven't looked great after timeouts again. I question why we still don't have an offensive coordinator. Is it because Leon Rose just wants to step back, let Tom Thibodeau do his thing? Is it because Tom Thibodeau maybe pushed back on the idea? Is it because they like maybe what their assistants bring? I don't know, but I still feel, given it doesn't cost you anything outside of a salary, bringing in an offensive coordinator makes a whole lot of sense, right? Tom Thibodeau, excellent at defensive schemes and slowing people down at times, but offensively there's no creativity. After timeouts, late in games, all of that. Questionable rotations at times. I thought, Emmanuel quickly needs to come in to give us that spark. I think when the defense is sputtering, if the defense is sputtering, Deuce McBride. And I feel like we might see some Evan Fournier at some point. But yeah, appreciate the chat. Replay squad, join us tomorrow night after the game, post-game live. I think it's around 10 p.m. And yeah, big game, Friday night Knicks. Let's chop it up then. Appreciate everyone for rocking along, smashing that like button. The streets are buzzing. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.